I'm Liz Faublas, and this is Currents. John Paul II and John the 23rd will be canonized saints of the Catholic Church on Divine Mercy Sunday in April. Pope Francis making the announcement this morning at the Vatican, the Holy Father speaking in Latin, the Church's official language often used on solemn occasions.
Ioannis Vicesimus Tertius et Ioannis Paulus Secundus.
The Pope addressing his remarks to the College of Cardinals, called together to hear the Holy Father's decree that the two popes would be inscribed in the Book of Saints on Sunday, April 27th, Divine Mercy Sunday, and also the second Sunday of Easter. John Paul and John are two of the most influential pontiffs in recent church history. The decision to canonize them simultaneously may be without precedent. John the 23rd convened the Second Vatican Council in the 1960s and is known as Il Papa Buono, the Good Pope. John Paul II was a central figure in the history of the 20th century, working to bring about the downfall of the Soviet Union's communist empire. He was the first non-Italian pope in more than 400 years when he was elected in 1978. During his pontificate, John Paul developed the Church's celebration of Divine Mercy Sunday. He died on the vigil of the feast in 2005 and was beatified on Divine Mercy Sunday in 2011. The Polish Pope is a beloved figure among the people of his native country. Shortly after the news came from Rome, Currents correspondent Conrad Aderer went to the Polish neighborhood of Greenpoint to visit the church that knows John Paul well.
44 years ago last Sunday, the Polish cardinal who was to become Pope John Paul II celebrated Mass here at St. Stanislaus Kostka Church in Greenpoint. We've come to this historically Polish neighborhood to find out how the news of its canonization is being received.
It was not a great surprise to us, but we are very happy that finally the date is being set, so John Paul II will be called the saint, because we believe that he's a saint person. From the moment of his beatification, we believe that he's in heaven with God. Many people come to praise God's name through the intercession of John Paul II. We have a beautiful relics and altar for him in our church, since he was in our church in 1969 as a cardinal. Nearby you can see the memorial stone of Blessed Jerzy Popiełuszko, a Polish priest who was murdered by the communist system, and John Paul II was closely working with Blessed Jerzy Popiełuszko, and he had a great respect also for John Paul II as a cardinal. In the front of the church, on the corner of Drix and Humboldt, you have a street sign which says Blessed John Paul II Square.
I had come to Greenpoint hoping to find plenty of Polish residents to tell me of their excitement about the canonization. But Father Sobczak told me that might not be so easy.
Practically all the businesses were involved in preparing the visit of Cardinal Wojtyła in our parish in '69, but since that time the neighborhood changed drastically. We have a lot of newcomers. The neighborhood is very expensive, so many Polish people are moving away.
Despite the disappearing Polish heritage of the neighborhood, I did manage to speak to the owner of this business, who had her own story about Pope John Paul II.
I met him in Rome at the Vatican, outside of St. Peter's in the square. We were speechless. But until he came and extended his hand to us, you know, I kissed his ring first, and then my husband kissed the ring. And we had told him where we're from Brooklyn, from St. Stanislaus Kostka Parish, and he raised his eyebrows because he remembered that he was here. All I know is I got the goosebumps again just talking about this man, and to know that he's going to be canonized, and that I had the privilege of holding hands and talking to a saint. That's it. You can't say anything more.
Many miracles happen through the intercession of Blessed John Paul II. We know that, we believe that, so it's just a crowning of what we believed from the very first moment of when we learned that he's going to be beatified.
My visit to St. Stanislaus Kostka showed me that no matter how much a neighborhood changes, the gifts a future saint brought here 44 years ago remain. Reporting for Currents, this is Conrad Aderer.
And more big news from the Vatican tonight on Pope Francis and his specially chosen group of cardinals set to hold their first meeting tomorrow. The Holy Father has put out an official letter giving them their name and setting out their job. Francis selected 8 leaders from every part of the world, and they will be known as the Council of Cardinals. The Pope also writes that their task will be assisting him in the governance of the Universal Church and in drawing up a new constitution to cover the Vatican. Although the first official meeting isn't until tomorrow, the cardinals and the Pope have been at work on reforming the Church almost since the day Francis was elected. On the first Sunday of his pontificate, the Holy Father wanted to talk with Honduran Cardinal Oscar Rodriguez Maradiaga.
That day when he invited me for lunch. That's
Sunday, after the first Angelus.
After the first Angelus.
Yeah.
And that was the day when he told me about this commission. And that was the day when he was proposing me as leader of this commission. And of course...
It's within 3 days or 4 days of the election.
4 days after the election. And so I knew he had everything in his mind. And in these 4 days have been days of... because he also gave me the name of the future Secretary of State. Now we are collecting all the suggestions from all around the world. Mm-hmm. This is one of the reasons there are cardinals from every continent. Mm-hmm. And so with this, we have been collecting suggestions. We have put them together. There are the main themes around the main themes, but it's necessary a long discussion and a long discernment. Is not just taking the Constitution, pastor bonus, and trying to change this and that. No,
thank God.
That Constitution is over.
Yeah.
Now it's something different. Before the conclave, there were suggestions that there should be a commission of cardinals around the world to have access, direct access to the Pope in order to give him information that many times did not come to him. And so this is how I think we are going to continue after the reformation of the Curia.
Cardinal Maradiaga is predicting the reforms will require long discussion. Tomorrow's meeting, the start of a 3-day session, will be held behind the closed doors of the library in the Apostolic Palace. The cardinals are staying with the Pope at Santa Marta House and will travel with him to Assisi on Friday. The war against Christians in Syria is causing great concern tonight in Brooklyn. Many Catholics at the Church of the Virgin Mary in Park Slope have close ties to Syria, and they are keeping watch on the latest developments.
Right now there's a very difficult situation in Syria where there are many Christians who are suffering persecution from rebels who are going from town to town and forcing the Christians to renounce their religion. And some of them are being summarily executed for that. It recently happened in a town of Malula, which was well documented, and more recently this past week, the rebels have gone to a town of Sayednaya, where many parishioners from our church here have family. We have parishioners that have family who are actually hiding in the basements of their homes, who have friends who are assisting the army in defending their town, but they're looking for safe passage out to other cities, either in Syria or out of the country, so that their families will be safe.
The president of Syria, long time, protect the Christian, about nobody harm any Christian people. But this problem in Qaeda came to Syria to attack Syria. Not just attack Syria, attack the Christian people. You know how many people die in Christian? More than 25,000 people die. You know how many churches burn in Syria? More than 200 churches and all church in Syria. Who support this Qaeda? Support Arabian Saudi and sometimes support Europe and United States. I am surprised how United States support the Qaeda, the Muslim fanatic to kill Christian people. We need to protect the Christian people. We need to fight the Qaeda and throw them out. After throw them out, it's very easy to put solution in Syria. Muslim people believe everybody is supposed to change to Muslim religion, you know that. It's a small city in Syria, only Christian and speak Jesus language. Came the Qaeda. Everybody not change from Christian to Muslim, kill him. You know that? In Ma'lula.
We have a lot of families here and we have new immigrants too. So they fled from the Middle East to come to the United States to find refuge, at least from this terrible war. And some of people I know that they get hurt. Some people they were kidnapped and released. Some people their relatives or friends or brothers, sisters were killed too. And it's all. You can see a lot of violence there, and war is not a good thing that is going on there.
I am so worried about my Syria because I feel crying to a lot of people. People died in Syria every day. We see it in internet. I feel crying and I feel very sad.
Currents has been reporting on the desperate situation of some 40 orphans and nuns trapped inside a convent in Moulula. They are short on food and without water or electricity. All efforts to bring them relief have been turned back by Al-Qaeda snipers. Meantime, Pope Francis is praying for them and consulting with the Greek Orthodox Patriarch John X. The nuns in Moulula are Greek Orthodox. The Patriarch arrived at the Vatican on Friday to meet with the Holy Father. He has remained in Rome and was in attendance as Francis celebrated a huge outdoor mass at St. Peter's Square yesterday.
Un saluto particolare rivolgo al mio fratello, Sua Beatitudine Giovanna X, patriarca greco-ortodosso di Antiochia e di tutto l'Oriente. La sua presenza ci invita a pregare ancora una volta per la pace in Siria e nel Medio Oriente.
The Pope and the Patriarch have also been talking about John's brother. He's one of 2 archbishops kidnapped in Syria last April. They were seized by Al-Qaeda. There has been no news regarding their whereabouts or physical conditions. Al-Qaeda's war on Christianity is not being waged only in the Middle East. In the predominantly Catholic city of Zamboanga in the Philippines, the government is claiming victory after a nearly 3-week revolt by Islamic terrorists. They were fighting to set up a hardline independent Muslim state in that city. More than 200 people have been killed, and although the government's confident that they've defeated the rebels, tonight there are new reports of scattered gun battles in and around Zamboanga. While Christians fight to practice their faith overseas, here at home, the church is facing a different kind of fight to keep Catholics from leaving. There's another report tonight that Hispanic Americans around the country are peeling away from the Catholic Church, some leaving the faith altogether, others joining the evangelicals. Pope Francis is insisting that Catholic priests move out of their sacristies and be with their people. Current's chief correspondent Bill Delano has checked in with the priest who's responsible for the diocese's Mexican faithful, and he seems to have heard the Holy Father loud and clear.
We had to change a little bit, we priests, I, myself, and to be more close to the people, close, to have this encounter.
Father Ortiz is echoing the words of Pope Francis, smell like the sheep, because the Hispanic flock, especially here in America, is leaving. He says people leave oftentimes because of work. He explains that one new parishioner showed up each Sunday with flowers in hopes of increasing his chances at finding a job.
Following Sunday, same person, flowers. What happened? I found a job. Not only 1, 2. Following Sunday, guess what happened? He stopped coming. Work. Because work, they came here to make money.
His parish is a success story, and he says there's many reasons for that.
They feel at home. They have this, they are very close to the rector, Monsignor Harrington, and to me. We have 600 parishioners in total when Monsignor Harrington, and after I arrived a year after, there were like 90 people coming.
A poll released on Friday confirmed the shrinking number of Hispanics in the U.S. flock. Half of those who leave are going to evangelical sects. The other half are dropping out of the church entirely.
Parishioners or the people who go to church, they don't feel like in the community, and they look for a community, a real meaning of community. And we can see in the church, sometimes we can have a lot of people, but you don't know who is next to you. maybe just at the moment of the peace, no? Going to be with the peace and say hello, peace, and that's it. It's the only moment that you interact with the other. When the church is a community of brothers that are together.
A church leader here in Brooklyn says more prayer groups would help.
There are so many Hispanics here, and some of them are in dire conditions and sometimes don't know where to go. So we have to multiply places of worship for them, because when they live at a distance from a church where there is charismatic ministry, they are discouraged by the distance, and they tend to go to a neighborhood prayer meeting. And one way to really reach out is to really be present to them. And I think the charismatic movement is very successful because of the type of their music, the enthusiasm of their members. So we really have to develop more prayerful presence in the Hispanic community. But the charismatic people need to be well formed in the Bible. So it's a real challenge to the Hispanic ministry in the diocese.
So the answer just might be to keep getting more and more local. For Currents from Brooklyn, my name's Bill Delano.
Well, one of the biggest evangelization events recently was when Pope Francis traveled to Rio de Janeiro to celebrate the Catholic faith with nearly 4 million young people at World Youth Day. Some of those from Brooklyn and Queens who attended got together once again yesterday to recall the experience and build on it.
Today we're taking an opportunity to talk with pilgrims who came from the Diocese of Brooklyn to go to World Youth Day in Rio. The ability to kind of gather after the big mountaintop experience and really kind of reflect on, what happened there and now what's going to happen. What are we going to do with it back at home?
We don't want to lose the fire that we had down in Rio de Janeiro. We had such a wonderful experience being down there with 3 million people and our Holy Father, Pope Francis, but it's important that we keep that fire lit here in our own parishes and in our diocese.
Just kind of stepping back and reminiscing on the experience, I think, is really important, because you grow spiritually and just kind of reflect about your faith and how that experience impacted that.
World Youth Day left an impact on a lot of people, and I think some of us are still unpacking a lot of what happened at World Youth Day. So a day like this gives an opportunity not just to reconnect with the people who you went to Brazil with, but it's also an opportunity to start to figure out, what does God want me to do?
He told us to go set the world on fire. We have to use what we have, our talents, and just try to ignite passion in others and passion in ourselves.
He called upon us as the youth to be the next generation of faithfuls. I think that was really inspirational, because he knew that we're going to make a difference in the world one day, and the fact that he really wants us to be the motivation for the next generation is pretty inspiring.
To really kind of look internally to see how your faith is affecting you and how Christ in your life affects you is extremely important, and it helps you to really kind of develop. There's a bit of, with reflecting there comes accountability. So, walk the walk, but also talk the talk and hold others to that as well.
God opened the door for me, 4 years ago in my own life, to consider the possibility of being a priest, and it has been an amazing journey, and World Youth Day was just a confirmation that, working with the young people, working with the people, working and seeing all the people in Rio, said to me, God wants me to do this. God wants me to step out and to help and to serve his people.
Well, it's great to see everybody. It's a couple months since we've been back, and we haven't done much since then. We did a small follow-up in my parish, but it's just nice to be able to get back together, be back here even in America, and kind of maybe looking forward to the thoughts that we'll share with each other, and really just be able to pray together once again. It's something, we do so much there, and now it's nice to continue that here in our home territory.
As I sit here and hear everyone's story about what inspired them, I feel a sense of community, because I see that we all have a common thread. Our backgrounds, our parishes all basically inspired us to take part in World Youth Day and to be a part of the greater community of Catholics in the world.
And coming up next, fighting the devil and fighting a killer disease. Details as Currents continues. Earlier in the broadcast, we reported the first meeting of Pope Francis's Council of Cardinals would be held tomorrow. Their job is to reform the church. Already, though, the Pope is achieving results on his efforts to fix the Vatican Bank. A news headline is describing it as an earthquake. Over the summer, the Pope picked new people to run the bank. Now they're getting high marks for actually implementing reform and transparency in bank operations. The Pope is talking to the cops, actually the Vatican police force. He celebrated Mass with them over the weekend. The Holy Father, in his homily, called on the police to fight the devil and gossip. The Pope saying the devil seeks to create war, a spiritual war, by means of gossip. The Pope adds that gossip is a temptation everyone faces, even himself. And as the Holy Father faces all the responsibilities of his pontificate, he seems to gain energy rather than becoming tired or fatigued. We've already heard from Cardinal Maradiaga on what to expect from the Pope's Special Cardinal Committee as they go about remaking the Church's bureaucracy. Now the Cardinal tells us about the man who seems to never sleep.
Now, I am surprised how he can perform so many works in a single day. I can give you an example. Last Friday, the president of Honduras went to Rome. They were taking the image of the Virgin Mary that is venerated in Honduras to put in the garden of the Vatican. And of course, we had the Mass with the Holy Father. Then there were the blessing of the image. Then the president had a private audience with the Pope. But I said to him, listen, Holy Father, I need to talk to you. And after breakfast, he said, come to me, to my room. And in front of his door, there is a small table with his agenda of the day open like this. And so he was looking, okay, I have time at 7 o'clock. I said, this man working, praying since 5 o'clock in the morning, celebrating the Holy Mass at 7 and having a full day, at the time he is over, receiving me. Okay, I went. And he was fresh.
His energy is unbelievable. Well, finally tonight, the basketball teams at St. John's University are taking up an important fight, and it's not for themselves. Current's Jim Mancari has the story.
We know that the Red Storm men's and women's basketball teams have plenty of hoops talent on the court, but they use their talents in a different way on Saturday. The Jamaica campus of St. John's University hosted the 3rd annual Dribble for the Cure to raise awareness for pediatric cancer. The event is part of a nationwide campaign to support the Pediatric Cancer Research Foundation.
It's significant for me because my father, my grandmother, my niece, and myself have all fought cancer. Oftentimes the most rewarding or memorable experiences, the most meaningful opportunities in our life are when we're focused on someone other than ourselves. And yet we benefit from that because we learn the gift of giving, which is an important thing to learn at a young age.
Coming from Africa, there's a lot of cancer back home and stuff, kids die. I mean, I like stuff like this because it's for a great cause. Like, I always support stuff like this, helping back and giving back, like, to kids, like people suffering from cancer. So I love this and I support it with my own.
Teams and individuals collected pledges and raised over $55,000, which was donated directly to the Pediatric Cancer Research Laboratory at the New York Medical College.
The Pediatric Cancer Research Foundation has been raising money for pediatric cancer for over 30 years. We are funding research that is cutting edge and is leading the way in treatments and hopefully a cure for pediatric cancer.
Just like at a St. John's basketball game, Dribble for the Cure featured plenty of energy and enthusiasm from everyone involved.
3, 2, 1, and let's begin.
The event included a 1-mile ceremonial dribble walk around the Jamaica campus that ended at Carnesecca Arena. Participants then had the chance to meet the Red Storm players and coaches.
The money is one thing, but is also the time and just the commitment to a cause like this is one of them. And I have 2 children of my own who luckily at this point in my life, they're very healthy, but I would love to know that if ever I needed it, we have a support system out there like this.
Seeing people who have less than what we have or are in, different situations, it's kind of a reminder to be grateful. I mean, it's just a realization, we realize how blessed we truly are.
In addition to the current St. John's players and coaches, a few special guests were present at the event.
It is really great to see Coach Carnesecca, Coach Kaiser, and even the special guest of the day, Coach Woodson from the New York Knicks.
We try to have our teams to do charitable things and compassionate things, and this is both.
The victories in the face that soon be forgotten, but the relationships that you build up doing stuff like this, that lasts forever.
The St. John's basketball teams are of course hard at work preparing for the upcoming season, but this event reminded them of what's really important in life, fighting to save young lives. Reporting for Currents, I'm Jim Mancara.
And thank you for joining us tonight. We leave you with more from Dribble for the Cure. For the entire Currents News team, I'm Liz Faublas. Have a good night.